In this module, we're going to go into making offers now, psychology, and the things to know about getting deals signed. So it's a complex topic, so I'm going to keep it as simple as possible and walk you through some of the attachments that I have included at the bottom there. And we're going to start with the basic 3 fundamental things that I think you need to get clear on before you start this process of making offers. So number 1 is target, the target outcome that you want. Once you've done your initial due diligence, and you've confirmed that the property meets your criteria and it's a good deal that you want to own for the long term, then you need to be clear on what you need and what price you can pay. Number 2 is the walkaway. So if the number exceeds your cash flow target, right, you're going to have that price that you can pay, your max price. You need to know that so that you can walk away if you don't get there. You can't be allured in by the beauty of the property or anything like that. So you got to know your walkaway price and target. Number 3 is your concession points. These are the 2 or 3 things that are often terms that you can give, and the 2 or 3 things or terms that you must get in return for if you do decide to give something, some kind of a give back and forth. You don't want to just give things for free. You want to ask for something in return. Other than that, my main recommendation is to make lots of offers. So don't be afraid of making offers, right? I used to be a real estate agent, and I think that's probably one of the main things I learned is you just got to make lots of offers on properties and see what's out there and see who's motivated, right? So we're going to talk about motivation of the seller, but you can't know anything unless you get offers out on the table. That's probably my biggest point for this module is you got to make lots of offers. Your subject clauses will protect you. So don't be afraid, right? You won't get any deals done if you don't make offers. Now, let's start with some of the attachments that I've included. The first one being seller motivation. So if you cut here, you'll see here a seller motivation checklist. I'm going to let you go through this on your own, but I would summarize this document as into understanding why. Number 1 is why is the seller selling the property? If it's an investment property and they've been holding it as an investment, why are they selling the property? Do they need the money? What is the story? So you really want to ask why are they selling, and once they tell you, why are they really selling? You really want to keep on harping on it and really understand the story of why they're selling, what their true motivation is, and then you can really have a good idea of how motivated they are and where you can go with your negotiations and where you can go with your offers. The next PDF that I included is basically just some tips about making offers. A tip that I learned early in my career with this stuff was you actually can make more than one offer. You can present multiple offers, right, from the same buyer, right? So you could even present one offer with this price and another offer with a different price and different terms. And that way it changes the psychology of it. Like instead of just being yes or no to me, they're looking at different offers within me, right? I'm open to this offer at this price with these terms, or if you want, I could bump up the price. Like for instance, I did a deal and I was happy to give a higher price if they would agree to do vendor financing for 2 years. Right? So in return for the higher price, I want them to loan me the money. So I'll pay the down payment and they act as the loan, the mortgage person, right? And they're going to file the mortgage on the property for a couple of years and then I'll get the conventional financing afterwards. So that's an example of this, right? Having 2 separate offers, and then they chose the higher price, right? So they sell the property at a higher price. It's actually a good thing for me too, in a certain way, getting the higher price, because when in the future, if I do sell the property, it anchors what I bought it for at a higher price, but I make up for the cash flow difference by getting favorable financing with them as the vendor versus conventional financing. So that's an example of making 2 offers from the same buyer. So it's a cool little tactic amongst many, many other tactics, but it's one I wanted to share here. So there's a PDF for that. The next one that I suggest, especially when you're buying single family homes or duplexes or condos, is often a residential seller. So what I always do, I've always done this and I encourage people to do it, especially investors, is I write a cover letter and it brings a bit of a personal touch to things, right? I write them a letter and I have my real estate agent give their real estate agent the cover letter explaining my story, right? Hi, myself and my partner, we're looking to buy an investment property. And you can kind of see the template here. You can totally adjust this to what your own story, right? But it's short and sweet. But it's basically, I like to express, I really like this property. So I want them to know that. I don't try and sugarcoat like, oh, we're not that interested. We kind of like it. I just say, I really like it. I love this property. But then I also tell them, but I am an investor. So I'm doing this to make money for myself and for my family. And we want to make, it's an investment property. So I'm an investor so that they know that obviously I'm not going to pay overprice because I need to make sure that the property works. But I also love the property. So it kind of creates this interesting dynamic of like, I love it. I love this property. I love what you've done with it. I want to take care of this for years and years to come, but I am an investor and I have to make decisions based on the numbers, right? So that's what I try and gauge in my cover letters. But I do think it's an excellent tactic for residential buying, especially. Include a cover letter with your offer and have your real estate agent give it to them. Next PDF I've included is just some terms. So there's going to be many. I didn't really need to include this because your real estate agent is going to give you a whole bunch of different terms and subject clauses when you make offers, right? That's why you can't be afraid to make offers, right? You just include subjects that allow you to get out of the deal, but at least you can start the negotiations. So you want to have subject clauses like subject to buyer obtaining satisfactory financing. So you might even be pre-approved, but you still want to include your financing clause, right? Subject to buyer's lawyer approval. That's, less common, but that's definitely a subject. Subject to the building inspection. Never, ever forgo an inspection. You'll be surprised at the stuff I've seen in inspections that you would never have known if you had just went and observed it yourself. So make sure you have that and always have your inspection subject. Subject to the seller supplying all of the different information that you need, like tenant lease agreements. Never just take it, someone saying, oh yeah, we rent this place for $6,000. I need to see the lease agreement signed by the tenant saying exactly how long they've been there, what they're paying for rent. And also my finance provider, if it is a conventional bank, they're going to want to see those lease agreements as well to validate the revenue of the property, right? So you're going to need all those kinds of things. So subject to the seller giving you all that, subject to the purchaser confirming satisfactory insurability. So you need to make sure that the property is insurable at the appropriate amount. So again, it's easy to overlook this one, but you need to make sure it's insurable. Sometimes houses aren't insurable or they can't be insured at what you need them to be. And that kind of would botch the deal. These are expensive assets. You're buying $1 million property and if they don't see that value, it almost is going to give you a feedback as well. Because if the insurance provider sees that it's worth what you think it's worth, they're going to be happy to insure it at that price. If they don't want to insure it, that's a red flag. So this subject is definitely important. Subject to confirmation that the buyer meets all applicable fire and safety codes. So have they done everything with permits, right? Is the property permanent? Maybe they did a renovation in the past that wasn't permitted. That's going to be a problem for me down the line that affects the valuation when I try and sell to other people in the future, right? Just like it would affect me, my decision right now, if I see that they don't have all these permits, that's going to want me to I'm going to need to bring the price down on the whole deal, or I'm just not going to be interested. Personally, I like to play by the book. I don't want to deal with that kind of stuff with my investment portfolio. So these are just some examples. There are many, many subjects. You could have subject to anything really, but your real estate agent's going to guide you through that process. The next PDF that I've included in the attachments is just negotiation secrets that I have found valuable. I'm not going to go through this whole list. You can kind of go through it for yourself. Just things that can help you with the psychology of negotiating, and essentially that's what it is, the psychology of negotiating. So I put 15 different tips. There are many more, but I've included this down at the bottom. The next PDF that's included in here is the due diligence checklist. Now, this is actually one that I do before I actually make my offers. It's part of my due diligence pre-offer. Most of the points on here, I can learn what they are before I actually make an offer. So if you zoom in here, it's all stuff kind of like about financials, about the building, about my purpose for the building, it's just a whole list of different things. And I want to get all these different things checked off. Yes, no, can I confirm are there any outstanding work orders on this property? Are the taxes up to date? All that kind of stuff. So there's a checklist here that I believe you should actually try and fill out before you start your offers process, just to make sure that this property, if you get it, really meets your criteria. Along the same lines, there's also another attachment that I've included here called the Property Goldmine Scorecard. And these last two, the due diligence checklist, the Goldmine Scorecard, these are included in the Excel file when I have my master due diligence file when I'm doing an analysis on a property. But I've just made it into a PDF here. This part kind of supplements the starting part when you're doing a market assessment. So yes, we want to see the growth rates, of course, of the population and the real estate prices and the income growth and all that, and job growth, employment growth. But there are other things we want to have checklists for around, like economic influences, demand. We want to have actual, like, a story, essentially. We want to understand the story of the city, right? It's not just a bunch of numbers. There's a story to each city. What are you going to do with the property? What is your actual specific plan for the property? Can you change the use of this property? Can you substantially buy below retail for the property? Can you increase the rents of the property? And if you can, why and how? Right? Are there renovations you can do that can increase the rent of the property? What is the zoning of the property? The economic influences here. There are other, are there current sales higher, right? Like, are there currently sales over list price in the area? Your real estate agent can answer these. So again, this is another checklist that you want to go through before you start the offers process to really make sure that you're in the right market, you feel good about the actual property and your ability to raise rents over time or do small renovations that will add value where you can increase rents. And of course, when you increase rents, that increases the value of rental properties. That increases the net operating income of a property, which is how rental properties get valued, especially when you get into multifamily. So this is another great checklist you want to do in your due diligence process prior to your offers. And the final thing I'm going to share is, once you do secure that offer, you've got the locked-in deal, and you're going through your subject removal phase, there's a property planning and control sheet, which I'm including here. It's also part of the master Excel file, which you can find in the next course. But I've just taken a screenshot or made a PDF of one of the Excel tabs, and it's the property planning and control sheet. And you can see here all the subjects and different things that are going to take place. So complete these conditions over here on the side before you remove conditions. These are the things you're going to have to complete before you close on the deal, right? So dealing with your legal stuff, dealing with banking stuff, setting up a bank account for the property, setting up your insurance for the property, confirming property management for the property. Who are the property managers in the region? If you're self-managing, great. But what if you didn't self-manage and you needed to revert to another property management company to assist you? How does that work? What do they look like? I have gone into towns where there just isn't any reliable property management, and that can be a problem. So you need to do that due diligence before the fact. If you're dealing with joint venture partners, you're going to have checklists. You're going to have to write a joint venture agreement. So I have checklists for all these things. Just like any system, when you're, in franchising, we do a lot of it's checklists and checklists. There's checklists for everything. Everything has a system. This is one of them. So when you're going through that offers, negotiation, subject removal period, these are all of the different things you need to be considering. Then once you finally do close the property on the deal, there are a few more things you have to do with legal, right? Make sure that the title is clean. You need to do stuff with your banking. Make sure that there's a contingency fund in through banking. You need to deal with liability stuff and utility stuff. You need to make sure all those accounts are cleared. So there's just more checklists. And if you need to do additional notes, you can put them on the side here. And I suggest you take the time. Part of your action step for this module is to go through all these PDFs and these these checklists. And you want to make sure that you're kind of going through, while you're going through the offers process, keep your eye on all these PDFs and just really you don't want to have anxiety going on within all of this. You really want to be quite calm and collected. You know your price, you know your targets, you know the terms you want, and you have some wiggle room. But at the end of the day, like, if the deal doesn't go, the deal doesn't go. And you can't be afraid to walk away and just go make another offer on another place, right? Find a truly motivated seller, right? I have had a lot of deals where I'm like, this would be perfect. Seller just wasn't motivated enough. And sometimes they become motivated. Maybe a year later, you sometimes see the same property that's still listed, or it's been taken down and relisted, and you start seeing these trends. That's all part of the process. And when you're a real estate investor, you got to love this part of the process. This is kind of the fun part of the process, really. So that is the section on, negotiations, making offers, doing your due diligence, being on top of the closing procedures and subjects, all that kind of stuff. In the next video, we're going to talk about property management and just like asset management, essentially. How do you, once you've got it, the work starts. Then you're really in it now for the next 8 years or so, or whatever your term is that you're holding. And the real work starts of increasing the value of the asset, taking care of the asset, taking care of the tenants, all that. So that's property management, asset management. And we're going to do that in the next module. So we'll see you in there.